Conor McKeown, there's a lot of talk about Ireland versus Israel, the game or games. Just break it down for us, though. What are we talking about here? What are these games? When are they due to be played?
Yeah, so these games are the Nations League, which is a competition that were brought in by UEFA in 2018, ostensibly to take away the kind of to add a bit of jeopardy and structure to international friendlies. International friendlies were kind of dying a death because they meant so little. So they brought in a competition to replace those. So in essence, what happens is that the teams in Europe play in 4 separate leagues depending on your ranking. Ireland are League 2 at the moment, so they compete against the teams ranked in UEFA between 17 to 32. We're in the middle 16 teams. So you're in a group of 4 and you play the other teams twice. And depending on where you finish, you can win a UEFA or a Nations League title. You can be relegated down the division. You can get promoted up to the next league, which would be League 1. And that has a knock-on effect for your qualifying. This is where the jeopardy comes into it, where there was none before. It affects your seeding for the next European Championships in 2 years' time. So the draw for this was made in Brussels in February, and Ireland were drawn with Kosovo, Austria and Israel. And at the time, it wasn't long after the FAI became the first and still to this date the only football association in Europe to propose any formal banning of Israel, which was a bit like kind of Sod's Law. No sooner had we proposed to ban Israel from international football than we were drawn to play against them. So this has kind of been in the making since February, and it has gotten to the stage where Ireland now have to make a decision over where they're going to play. The FAI have to make a decision over where they're going to play Israel. And as far as I know, by UEFA statutes, the decision has to be made 120 days out from the fixture and 120 days back from our scheduled home fixture against Israel would be June the 7th, which is this Saturday, which is why this is in the...
So you can't wait till the week beforehand to say, no, we're not playing that today, you'll have to play it somewhere else. These things are all planned in calendars well in advance for logistical reasons. People need to know where they're going, and tickets and fans and all that. So basically, this week is crunch time. The FAI need to make a decision. Are we fulfilling the fixture? And if so, where is it being played? And that needs to be put in a calendar. And thus far, so the FAI are saying we're going to play.
Yeah, so very soon after that, as in within minutes of the draw being made, the FAI released a statement to say that they would be fulfilling this fixture. And in fact, 2 of the most high-ranking FAI officials were present at the draw. Paul Cook, who's the FAI president, and David Carrell, who's the chief executive, and both of them refused media interviews at the time and left the manager, Heimir Hallgrímsson, as the sole spokesperson for Irish football. But that position has not changed since February. What probably has changed is, well, look, it depends on how shocked people were by the tennis ball protests the other night against Qatar. I'm not sure.
Tell us about that then. What happened at the match?
Yeah, Ireland played Qatar in an end of season friendly in Lansdowne Road, and some fan groups who were very opposed to the Israel fixture going ahead protested by throwing tennis balls on the pitch. They have done this before, and it's a stop the game protest. There are a large body within Irish football who don't want these games to go ahead, that we should make an ethical protest, that we should not play and fulfil the fixtures against Israel. And it stopped the game the other night on several occasions, and that was a very low-key fixture, and it's still several months out from the Israel game. And on the one hand, I think the perception of what has happened since was that it has forced the FAI to reconsider whether they're going to play that game in Dublin, whatever about playing the fixtures at all. But I just find it hard to believe that anybody was sort of shocked by the level of protests. And my own sort of take on it is that in February, after this draw was made, the key parties involved here, whatever about UEFA, the Irish government and the FAI would have known that it was very difficult for this game to go ahead in Dublin because of security concerns, because of logistics, because of all those things around it. And my own just sense of it was that they were kind of waiting on the other. There was a game of kind of chicken going on to see who would blink first. And obviously if the government turned around to the FAI and said, this game can't go ahead in Dublin, The FA have already sold tickets for this in the form of season tickets, so they will be due some compensation. But thus far, the government position on this has been incredibly passive.
So, did you get the sense then that the FAI were waiting as such for the government to almost bail them out and say, oh no, this fixture shouldn't go ahead?
Well, it just strikes me as odd that we've reached almost the deadline for setting the venue for this fixture, and the FA are only taking... That's what I'm saying about the tennis ball protest the other day against Qatar. I'm not sure that anybody in the FAI was suddenly sort of awoken from their slumber about the sensitivities around this fixture. So I'm just very suspicious that it has taken this long. I understand that we had to wait until the qualifying campaign finished, and obviously that went into the playoff. But that's been 5 weeks now, and it's very odd that we've come this far. And like on the political spectrum, we've had both the Minister for Sport and the Minister for State for Sport saying that they won't attend the game in protest. You know, with Micheál Martin recently saying the detention of the Irish activists on the flotilla, including the President's sister, Dr. Margaret Connolly, you know, is unacceptable. But like, they're just words, and like, you know, everybody.
This is seen as an actual action to take, and it's not being taken.
And it's not being taken. And I suppose this comes down to the question of who should take the stance.
Yeah, so that's the issue here. UEFA, which is the football governing authority here, they're saying the game is going ahead and Israel are included. The government of Ireland is saying, well, no, look, if it's a fixture, it's going ahead. We don't see a problem with security and logistics. So it is being left to the FAI, in effect. Then the pressure is on them to take the stand.
Yeah, there's two things even to go further back from the draw. Back in October, there was a mooted vote in UEFA to ban Israel from international, certainly from UEFA. I don't know whether it was going to be FIFA, but definitely UEFA, the European governing body for football. And according to Martin Ziegler in the Times, in some very well sourced reporting, that was going to pass. And very soon afterwards, there was the US brokered sort of peace deal. There was some opposition from member states in UEFA, most notably Germany, and there was US state department statements that they would oppose any ban of Israel, and given that they're the next host of the main host of the World Cup, that carried some clout. So it kind of died a death. It never came to a vote. But it is worth stating for the record that UEFA were on the verge of voting to ban Israel, just as FIFA and UEFA in the past, in 2022, banned Russia from international football competition, for which they're still banned. And behind all of this, the FAI, their General Assembly, which is made up of lots of stakeholders in the Irish football wider kind of congregation, referees, amateur players, universities, a proposal that came from Bohemians Football Club to seek to suspend Israel from international football won an overwhelming majority, and that was put to the FAI. The FAI then brought that to UEFA. So the only official moves to ban UEFA were a sort of a mooted vote, which they themselves never followed up on, and then a proposal which came from the FAI, which was effectively sort of swept under the carpet by UEFA at the time.
Okay, so it hasn't taken hold. So options then are fulfil the fixture in Dublin, don't fulfil the fixture at all, or go to a neutral country. That's a possibility.
Yeah, like a lot of Israel's international games, not just in football, in basketball, and lots of different sports, have been played in neutral venues. Like there's clearly... International sporting bodies aren't oblivious to what's happening, which is why they have mandated Israel to play their own home games in foreign countries. But generally speaking, they have travelled away from home to fill the fixtures that they've played. And the Israeli FA were on the record straight away after the draw to say that they were quite happy to travel to Dublin to play this game. But like, I don't know, like, I'm not an expert, but I can just see the level of opposition that would be... You know, like we've had 35,000 people protest in Dublin just in solidarity with Palestine. We've never had the concentration of focus that a visiting Israeli team would have coming to Dublin. And particularly with a line of sight of whatever it is, 120 days down the tracks, that would be an incredibly inflammatory sort of an occasion. And you have issues over the travelling delegation have to stay in a hotel in the state. I think it's 48 hours beforehand. You would have issues over hotels. Who's going to take that booking? The SIP2 workers in Dublin Airport who've already voted against this. So there's a huge opposition against playing Israel in any capacity.
The security alone, not just in the stadium, but around the stadium and the routes to the stadium, as you say, it will be a draw of attention to one specific time and location.
Yeah, and that's the reason that I feel that the FAI have been left in a very tricky position on this fixture. Ultimately, it's up to them to fulfil the fixture or not. But I still think the government could have stepped in February when this draw was made, or at some stage since, and say, this game can't go ahead in Dublin. I don't believe that there's government ministers in there that genuinely believe that it is preferable for this game or even viable to go ahead in Dublin, given the level of protest that it's obviously going to attract.
Yeah, I mean, more than tennis balls, you'd have to say.
No.
Yeah. The public face of football very often tends to be the manager or the players. So what have I suppose that the footballing side being saying about this fixture?
Yeah, I do want to emphasise, I think the FAI are in a very difficult spot here. They have to do what's best for Irish football, and what's best for Irish football might not be taking what people would consider to be the ethical stand. And they're in a very precarious place financially. They're also co-hosts of the next European Championships, and if there is a kind of a financial planning for the next couple of years, it's batten down the hatches until we get the Euros, and then see can we get things back on an even keel. But having said that, I think it was poor from Paul Cook and David Carell not to speak at the draw and left Heimir Hallgrímsson as the sole spokesperson. He's the international manager. Regardless of whether he's from Iceland or Ireland, he should not have been in a position where he had to justify Ireland's participation in the fixture. But what he did say was that he didn't see any difference between Russia and Israel, and that if Russia were banned, so should Israel. But with the very reasonable asterisk that he's the international manager and it's his duty to fulfil the fixtures that are placed in front of him. And he has been very consistent on that. He's been a very sensible presence in Irish sport, Heimir, since he came in. Very sensitive to the sort of political sensitivities which he wouldn't necessarily have been familiar with before he came. And then we had a match before the Qatar match. There's different players spoke. I think Seamus Coleman spoke incredibly well, said that he knew he was a father and a brother and a son, and he knew what was right and what was wrong. But this shouldn't be up to the players to take a stand or issue a position. But unfortunately, as per match day protocols, players will always be interviewed before matches. Yeah. And you can't stop people from asking these questions. There is talk that the Irish players are going to release some sort of blanket statement if these games go ahead. I presume the point of that is to sort of state a collective position and maybe stop being asked. But the fact is they're playing a friendly against Canada next weekend. Then when the Nations League starts, we play Kosovo in the first game before the two Israel games. So people aren't going to stop asking about this. It's too big an issue.
And there, I have seen random speculation which suggests, the players shouldn't turn up or they should boycott the game. Like, what do you make of that?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there were one or two players in the squad who were of that mind. But I think their loyalty is to the team. And they won't want to kind of cough up fixtures. The team has momentum, whatever that means. But they have a kind of upward trajectory for the first time in 5 or 6 years. And I think there's a kind of collective unity in that team where they will want to speak their mind in a very collective way. I don't see it being that kind of splintered that players will go off and make their own stances. But just that question of who this should be on to make the stand, whether it's the government of Ireland or the FAI or UEFA, it definitely isn't the Irish football team. If they're called up for international duty and the FAI tell them that there's a game to be played, it's a very difficult and unfair sort of burden, like a moral burden to face them with, to expect them to make their own judgment.
And then on that point, so what are the consequences then if the FAI turn around and say, OK, we're not playing the game? Yeah,
so there's been a fair bit of, I won't say scaremongering, but I think there's, people, like as per the UEFA rules, you're in concession of the points, which would be 6 points in a table where there's a maximum of 18 points up for grabs. So that wouldn't be insignificant. I'm not sure that Ireland are at a place where we'd necessarily fancy our chances taking maximum points against Kosovo or Austria. It's also stated within the rule that you risk expulsion from the competition itself. Now, it doesn't say automatic expulsion, and I think given the kind of sensitivities involved here, it's unlikely that UEFA would be too stringent on Ireland. But you have to remember as well, like with Ireland being the next co-host of Euro 2028, the kind of upper echelons of the FAI are kind of moving in these UEFA circles now, and it's a difficult thing for them to be taking a stand. I don't think they would feel that it would reflect well on Ireland to be disqualified from the Nations League.
So it's kind of a political capital thing. We're not a big enough country, and we've been coming with the begging bowl to UEFA in recent years.
Yeah, and like Ireland is hugely the FAI is hugely reliant on UEFA handouts for even just to service some of their debt. And, with the Euros coming here, there's a great opportunity for the FAI to have a once-off kind of windfall in terms of all their commercial activisations and the various different fees that you get with hosting, plus the very high likelihood that Ireland are going to be in the tournament. So I suppose the punishment fallout, the likelihood is that Ireland would concede the 6 points. That could see Ireland being relegated down to groups or to League C, which would mean a lower seeding for the qualifying for the Euro 28.
Yeah, we played Qatar.
Yeah,
last week. Hosted the World Cup a couple of years ago. There was all sorts of reports at the time about the number of deaths that there were on building sites of migrant workers from working in severe heat. There's obviously human rights issues in Qatar. We frequently play Oman over the course of the last decade because it seems to be a handy fixture, because we seem to get it seems to be quite lucrative. Yes. For us. So, how come we play those games?
Yeah, and listen,
with very little protest.
Yeah, and like on Saturday night, Paris Saint-Germain won the Champions League for the second time.
The Champions League, yes, if you're an Arsenal fan. Yeah.
With garlands being thrust at their feet, and they're the greatest sports washing project by a state for sort of nefarious means. So, the heads of that state can intermingle with the glitz and the glamour of elite sport. And listen, in September, around the same time as these games are going to happen, the Irish Open is going to be in Doonbeg, which is owned by Donald Trump. His name is over the door, given the havoc that's being wreaked. And I accept all those points of view. And it comes back to like a question of how active are any of us when it comes to launching our moral objections. But I just think that the situation in Gaza, like by the WHO, there have been more civilian casualties in this conflict than any in the 21st century, and 21,000 of those are children. And there's something very depraved about indiscriminately killing children that I think has touched on a lot of nerves of people, not just people who are inclined towards activism generally, but who aren't, and people who are very passive when it comes to having a sort of a more international moral conscience. And I think for that reason, like, we all have to make our decisions to where you take a stand. I don't think we can be completists in our sort of morality. So I think for a lot of people, it's about a question of where the line is. And I think the line is somewhere around Israel's assault in Gaza since the last 2.5 years now.
John Delaney used to have a phrase called the football family, where he used to talk about, as you said, the stakeholders. There's an awful lot of elements make up what is the FAI. The FAI isn't just an office out in Abbottstown. It's a collective, the same as the GAA. Eamon Dunphy talks about football people. So amongst the football family and football people, how exercised are people about this game going ahead? Yeah,
so like it goes back to the FAI General Assembly. So the FAI General Assembly is, I suppose, all the strands of football in Ireland. And, they brought a motion that Bohemians tabled, and it was backed by a lot of the supporters groups around it. And it was to call on UEFA to ban Israel from European club and international competitions for violating 2 independent provisions. This was very specific. It wasn't a general ban Israel because of Gaza. it was about two provisions. The violations that were cited were the organisation of clubs in illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank without the consent of the Palestinian Football Association. And the second was a failure to implement and enforce an effective anti-racism policy. So these are two statutes that the FAI General Assembly wanted the FAI to bring to UEFA to say, look, they are in breach of this and they should be banned for this, because these are very specific. As you know, like, if you want to go and get somebody suspended, you have to make sure that you're citing a rule. And another thing that the FAI General Assembly looked for was clarification as to this criteria by which a country could be banned from international competition. Now, it didn't mention Russia, but that was the context. Russia are banned. No, there is no document anywhere, no official declaration as to specifically which rule they broke. Presumably the idea is there to see how transferable that breach of rule is to what Israel has done. So that the motion to bring that to UEFA passed by 74-7 with 2 abstentions. So
so this is not just a Bose thing.
This is a huge overwhelming groundswell within Irish football, and so there is going to